Warren Eckstein here. In all the years I've been training, probably the most frustrating thing for any good pet guardian is getting their dog to respond to the word come, getting them to come back when they call them. There's many reasons dogs don't do this, so let's start off right from the beginning by blaming you. How many people out there that have a dog, when the dog is doing something wrong, they'll use the dog's name and they'll say, Willie, get over here, Willie, stop that, or Molly, don't do this. You don't want anything negative associated with the dog's name. That's number one. Number two, very often when your dog isn't listening to you or they're misbehaving, they're doing something wrong, you say, get over here, bad dog, what did you do? Phooey, wait till daddy comes home. So calling your dog to you to correct him or calling your dog to you for something negative is not going to work well for you. You should check the video out on associative memory. One of the most important things that you can do is make sure that every time you call your dog, number one, you have a way of making sure he responds to you. And number two is that it's a positive thing. So you don't want to use the dog's name or the word come unless you can follow through or unless there's a big reward at the end. That reward could be a hug and a kiss, doesn't have to be a treat. There are so many mistakes that people make. First of all, most trainers teach the dog to come from a stationary position. So they tell you to put the dog in a sit stay, go to the end of your 6-foot lead, call the dog, reel the dog in when he comes, give him a lot of praise. Not a bad idea, except think about this. How often do you call your dog when they're sitting still? Generally, when you want your dog to come to you, they're chasing a squirrel in the backyard, going after another dog, or doing something mischievous. So what you want to make sure that you do is teach the dog to come from motion. So again, as I said, most trainers teach the dog to come by putting the dog in a 6-foot lead, calling the dog and reeling in. Not bad, but listen how I do it. While I'm working with the dog, while I'm training the dog, all of a sudden, I will step back and start reeling the leash in, calling the dog's name, Molly, come. A couple of things happen here. Number one, the dog is learning to come to me while not looking at me. I'm using her name to get her attention, using the command I wanted to follow, which is come, and I'm stepping back, so she's learning to come from motion. Start out with a 6-foot lead, you can go to a 10-foot lead, a 12-foot lead, a 15-foot lead. Then after that, you can start practicing with her off lead in an enclosed area that's fenced, obviously. And if she doesn't respond 85% of the time, back on the leash. Back on, back off, back on, back off. I promise you, continuity will get the results that you want. Now let's take a look at why so many dogs don't come back. First of all, dogs love running around the backyard. Dogs love being at the doggy park. They absolutely adore it. They're playing with their buddies. They're running around. They're going a little crazy, a little nuts, and that's fine. So often when the guardian says to their dog, come, they're either going to remove them from the dog park because it's time to go home, or if they're in the backyard sniffing and playing and chasing a squirrel, they're going to call the dog's going to come, and the dog's now going to be confined inside, taken away from what he was enjoying. So why should they come back next time? So here's my recommendation. What you do sometimes is call your dog. Let's say you're in the backyard. Call your dog to you and then let him go play again, maybe 9 or 10 times, and that's what you want to do. So the dog doesn't associate every time he comes to you with something negative. He's going to have to go inside, he's going to have to leave the park, leave his buddy. So practice calling the dog to you and then let him go play some more. Really, really important. And don't wait until you're leaving the park, as I said. Practice on a regular basis, even when you're not leaving the park, getting the dog to come. Now, the most important thing is the come command is really critical. And the reason I say it's really critical is because it's probably the most important thing that can save your dog if he's chasing a car or chasing another dog or getting into some type of trouble. But always make the come command fun. Never make it where you're going to correct the dog or not reward the dog. And it should be a tremendous reward when it comes to you. Again, it could be hugs and kisses, it could be food, whatever you like. So again, the most important thing to remember is never call your dog to you. If you're going to correct your dog or have anything negative, always call him to you only when it's positive. Only use the dog's name when it's positive. Besides teaching the dog to come from a 6-foot lead, teach him to come from a 6-foot lead in motion. As you're walking with him, step back, reel him in, call him to you. He'll get the idea, I promise. Many of the dogs I worked with overseas for so many years, imperative that they come when they're called. It's important. It could be life-saving. It doesn't have to be life-saving for your dog, but if you're consistent, you'll find that the frustration of having that dog that doesn't listen to you will dissipate. And that's what it's all about. Your relationship with your dog will be even stronger. And the most important thing to remember, it's not going to happen overnight. Don't get frustrated. Don't get angry. Have a glass of wine, go back at it and try again later or the next day. Coming to you should not be that difficult. Very often it's the people, the guardians, that make it more difficult. So make it fun for you and the dog, and I promise you, your dog will be coming almost every time you call him. I'm Warren Eckstein. Never miss the pet show.